Welcome to the second day of our technical writing workshop. So in today's lecture, I will show that how can we craft a compelling story and why is it why is it very necessary to write a very good story related to our research work and what kind of factors we have to keep in our mind in order to write this impactful story. So we know that in order to make something memorable and to keep in our mind, we have to make a, a story about it or have to associate it with the story. So nothing different for science. In order to make our research work and publishable work memorable and more famous to a wider range of audience, we have to associate a story and we have to write it in a storytelling style. The science is not just data, it's about meaning and understanding. And we can enhance that meaning and understanding by crafting a compelling story around our data. So, as for story in fiction, we have here characters. And our leading characters taking leading roles are our research questions, motivation, implications of that study, and also the data. And in order to craft a compelling story, we have to allow the data to speak it for itself. And we should not impose the story on the data. Like a good story in fiction, we have to listen to our character, what they are trying to tell to us. So data can deliver a core message. So there are some approaches that we can adopt to simplify our work. So first, we have to adopt bottom-up approach. We have to examine our data closely. We have to identify patterns behind it. And we have to explore extreme or unlikely interpretations of our data. And after doing that, we have to adopt top-down approach. While doing interpretations and analysis of our data, we have to cut down the unnecessary and unlikely explanations and should craft a more simplified version of our understanding of the data. And this process and approach in usual words is called Occam's razor. So the essence of deriving a message from data is to start with some wider and much more wild elaboration. Then, in order to develop understanding, we have to cut down the unnecessary ones in order to get towards a core message behind the data. So consider the story of the DNA, where Watson, Crick, and Franklin played a crucial role. So before telling the story, let me show two more important figures behind. So the figure A is taken from uh, X-ray spectroscopy of the crystallized DNA by Rosalind Franklin. And the other picture is the famous double helical structure of our DNA. So Rosalind Franklin take X-ray crystallographic data of the crystallized DNA, and Watson and Crick extracted the insightful story from that data and built that DNA helical structure that we famously know. So, in order to uh, get impactfulness and get impactful story behind data, we first have to collect the data, then we have to extract information from it, then we should have to craft that information in the form of knowledge. And from that knowledge, we have to develop understanding of the data. So following these four methods or four steps in sequence, we can extract a very compelling story and understanding from the data. So that was done by Watson and Crick. Another example is the slope soil depth study by Dietrich. And it is a study in which he did very wild interpretation of data and more elaborate interpretation of data to extract groundbreaking uh, findings. So the people who know a little about environmental chemistry or soil chemistry, they know that there is a relationship between slope angle and soil depth. So these two variables follow a pattern and there is some kind of relationship between them. So while doing this analysis, he observed some unexpected pattern, and these distinct shoulders make, made him able to interpret his data more widely and elaborately, and it allowed him to did a groundbreaking research and he wrote an impactful paper due to this that has been cited by hundreds of authors doing the research in this very particular field. So one thing we have to consider and keep in our mind while doing analysis of data that we should not ignore even a hair length or hair breadth of the uh, detail in our data. We have to analyze each and everything in our data in order to craft a story out. And doing this, we can extract a very compelling story out of it. So there is an elaborate and slash approach. We have to give as many interpretation as possible of our data and let creativity run wide before judging. And if something that does not fit to the existing theory or uh, laws or principles, we have to cut it down and should move towards the simplest explanation that we could have and that still fits the data. And we should cut away the excess. By doing this elaboration and slashing, we can uh, we can get a very simplified and yet powerful story of our data that our data is trying to tell us. So take away from these points that first we have to listen all signals, even the faintest one of our data, and then we should try to see the patterns behind these details and should not overlook anything of the data. And after doing this analysis, we should simplify the things and cut down the things that are not matching to our understanding. And through this, we can tell a compelling story that has been told by our data. So this is all about the importance of storytelling and how can we make our story and from the data and also how these kind of approach can make our story more compelling and our research more impactful. So let's deep down towards the idea of stickiness of our story. How can we make our story stuck into the mind of the readers and the audience that is trying to read and decipher the meaning of our research? So the Chip Heath and Dan Heath give the idea of sticky ideas. So they explain that sticky idea is an idea that is more likely to make a difference. Some ideas fade quickly, others remain for decades. In science, great papers have legs. They stand the test of time. So they gave us six factors that we should consider while crafting the story. And they can be formed in some kind of mnemonics. So they can be spelled as SUKAS. So S stands for simple, U stands for unexpected, C stands for concrete, another C stands for credible, and E stands for emotional, and S stands for stories. Let's discuss them one by one. So first factor is the simple. Our idea should be very simple, and it should cover the whole essence of our finding. So there's a difference between simple and simplistic. So many things are simplistic rather than simple. So consider a political slogan that says no to taxes. This slogan ignores all the factors the behind the process of paying taxes because if we pay tax, if we pay taxes uh, regularly and punctually, we can get many kind of benefits like health benefits and safety from our government. But this slogan ignores all these factors behind it. So this idea is simplistic but not simple because it negates the depth behind it. So our idea should be simple and cover all the understanding and the depth of the knowledge behind it. So there is a famous story of the Civil War in the era of Abraham Lincoln in the America. So there was a person who was trying to discourage the soldiers that were uh, fighting for the cause of country. So uh, in order to discourage these kind of things, Lincoln said that must I shoot a simple-minded soldier boy who deserts while I must not touch the hair of a wily agitator who induces him to desert. So by uh, saying that kind of simple thing, he still empathize and simple and able to able to able to produce some sympathetic emotion of the public uh, toward these soldiers and also to the hatefulness to the person uh, who is trying to discourage the soldiers uh, that are fighting for the country cause. So our idea should be that kind of simple and should not lose the depth behind it. So in science, we have that kind of simple ideas that are simple, but they carry a lot of depth of knowledge behind it, like Darwin's natural selection, plate tectonics, DNA double helix, DNA double helix, and they are simple and but they are yet powerful. So there's another maxim that is it's the economist's today. Again, it is very simple cluster maxim, but it carries a lot of depth in it. So again, there is a relationship between soil quality and freeze-thaw process. So some soils cause rich respiration uh, during the freeze-thaw process, but others do not that much great, and these are called poor soils. So if we send some kind of paper related to this and ignore some anomalies behind these processes, reviewers may uh, reject our paper and they uh, return to us that saying that there should be some kind of simple story. So in order to make our story more compelling, we should able to explain all the anomalies behind the data. And doing this, we can get a very impactful paper that can be cited many times because it is as much impactful and contributing to the field. So while doing while explaining our ideas in simple language, we should use a psychological term called schemas. So people understand new concepts faster when they are linked to familiar schemas. So when we are when we came across or when we come across a very different story, a very different idea, and uh, when we saw some different terms explaining this idea, we usually do not buy it because it is very difficult to uh, or very difficult to relate to our previous experiences. So another, again, the example of Lincoln, I will try to quote is that he he delivered the idea in very simple way because he was able to compel the people or convince the people because he used the word that uh, can be relatable to anyone reading that sentence. So he used the word really agitator. So this kind of thing can be very easily interpretable to everyone, and everyone can relate to it and can make a good imagination or get good image in his mind or in her mind and can easily understand the new idea behind it. So using schemas can really simplify our work and it can make things very digestible to the general public. So again, another scientific example is that we are trying to explain what the crocodile need need taste like. So either we can say that it is light colored and finely textured and little fat and like this using some jargons. So many people will not be able to relate to this kind of words and will not be able to pick the idea behind the sentence. Either we could say that it tastes like chicken, but meatier. So in actual, it is not like chicken, but it tastes like chicken. So many people can uh, bathe this, bathe this idea and can easily assimilate this idea because they know the taste of the chicken. So they can imagine how the crocodile meat tastes like. So in order to simplify our idea, we have to use these kind of schemas in order to make our new idea relatable to the previous experiences. So another factor is the unexpectedness in our story. So the core idea is that great papers go beyond the incremental. They present something novel and unexpected, sparking curiosity with a clear knowledge gap. So you might have observed that many of the groundbreaking papers are based on some novel research, but many are based on some uh, repetitive application of methodology, and just extension of some study. So these paper could be not great, but good. But in order to make our paper very impactful and groundbreaking, we have to uh, come up with some novel and unexpected question. So this could be done by some non-obvious questions, and they are new. And we have to develop our question in such a way that they seem or sound like a novel approach. So while we know that science is all about making progress step by step, we should use the knowledge gap theory, and also we should know the craft to make our question more compelling and novel. So instead of measuring X again, we could say that what does X behave differently in the Y? And we should be able to reveal a surprising trend hidden in an existing data set. And we should be able to identify counterintuitive implication of a standard model. So unexpectedness and the surprise of our approach and the nature of our question can enhance the stickiness of our idea. Another is concrete. So the core idea is that specific, definite, and concrete writing holds attention better than vague or purely abstract ideas. Science lives between concrete data and abstract ideas. Grounding abstractions in the concrete makes your work memorable. So we know that in science, we usually have abstract ideas. So there is some abstract ideas like the survival of the fittest or the evolution. And behind it is a very concrete data. So there is a ladder of abstraction. At the top, we have very abstract data, and at the very bottom, we have uh, concrete data supporting that abstract idea. So in order to make the whole thing concrete, we have to we have to pay attention to the middle region of our ladder, and this is usually called danger zone. And in order to successfully pass through it, we should not we should pay attention to this region, and should not uh, should be and we should do and how should I say, like it should not be jargon heavy in a middle rounds. So while uh, explaining the abstract ideas through the concrete data, we should use uh, user-friendly language in order to connect these two things while explaining the idea to the reader in order to reduce that damage as much as possible. So let's let's take let's look at the examples. So in politics, It's the economies to it. So there's a concrete focus instead of vague stay on message. So in chemistry, we have many ideas like more stoichiometry and some kind of say hybrid orbital theory. So in chemistry teaching, we usually take this kind of approach. First, we uh, explain simplified things like valence band theory in inorganic chemistry. Then we move onto the organic chemistry to give much more realistic picture of the reaction that has been explained by valence band theory and previously in inorganic chemistry by the introduction of hybrid orbital theory. And then after explaining that, we jump on to the physical chemistry, explaining the reactions and hybrid orbital theory through the Schrödinger equation. And we know that it says that the orbitals are just probabilistic clouds. So, so another example is the DNA structure story. So in this story, Franklin gave the X-ray diffraction data to Watson and Crick, and they were able to conceptualize the data in the form of a diagram, and it enhances the concreteness of their research. So, through many ways, we can increase the concreteness of our data and our research, and enhances this enhances the impactfulness of our study. So another is the credibility. Our ideas should be credible and should be built upon something previously done. So the core idea is that credibility is the backbone of science writing. Without it, your work is dismissed as fiction. Being concrete supports credibility, and credibility comes from building an unbroken chain from past work. So, past work should reconcile with our data, and our data should be reconciled with the conclusions. And in conclusions, we should give the future direction of our research work. So our data and our idea should be based upon some previous research, and we should cite that source uh, in our research work while writing, because without it, our idea is just like a science fiction. And we should present methods and data clearly using appropriate statistics. And we should avoid some hype and buzzwords and style our substance. Our substance should be the main character of our story, not these uh, these words like uh, hype and buzzwords. And and we should be able to extract some abstract claims from our data, from our concrete data through the examples and details. So in research proposals, these things usually matter because using just bold claims and buzzwords undermine our credibility because these things will not be on the solid foundation, and the reviewer that uh, that will be going to fund our research will not take these kind of things very seriously and will reject our research proposal. So we should uh, make our research proposal or whatever research paper we are trying to read on the solid ground, and it should be based on past work, and from this we could derive some extensions. So another factor is is emotional. So this word is quite weird in scientific writing because we know that as a scientist we should be objective and dispassionate. But two kind of emotions are allowed in scientific pursuit. And the first one is curiosity. And without it, we cannot do a proper science and excitement. While reading our work, the reader should be excited. And that would make, and these two emotions can make our story very sticky and very compelling. So, in order to engage emotionally, we have to craft an engaging question. So, so instead of asking that, what's my answer? We should ask, what's my question? And we have to use unexpected elements to spark curiosity as expected, as asking some novel question in our research. And while writing proposals, we should keep in mind that we should at least at least to excite one of the reviewer because that can make our that can make our research proposal very strong because the person who gets excited by reading our research proposal will be our advocate and this can win us very important and very generous funded grants. So for example, while framing paper, we should ask instead of asking we measured x, we should ask instead of we should ask like why does x behave this way under y? And while crafting a proposal, we should make it exciting so that one of our reviewer, at least one of our viewer, gets excited while reading it. So last one is the stories. So the core idea is that while compelling, while writing a compelling paper, we should be able to connect all the story modules. So each module should have its own focus, characters, and message. And together they form a cohesive narrative. So again, our each module should be coherent and self-sustained, and each module should have its own characters, like data and ideas, and all the modules should be correlated in order to form a very sticky story and idea. And we should heavily rely on unexpectedness and emotion. And how can we do it? By crafting a very compelling question, and we can we can spark a curiosity in the mind of reader, and we could invoke him emotionally. And these things can make our story very compelling and very impactful. So keeping these things in our mind, we can write a very good research paper and a very good research proposal that can win us very generous scholarships and research grants.